Hello and welcome to this episode of Peace at Last, the podcast that interprets the latest scientific discoveries in psychology, explains techniques and principles from ancient spiritual traditions, and gives you tools to put them into practice. You can change the way you feel and find peace at last. I am Dr. Fabrice Nye, psychologist and spiritual traveler. If you like what you hear in this podcast, you may subscribe on the platform of your choice. I also invite you to share your favorite episode with people who might benefit from it. You're listening to episode number 2, and today we're going to talk about core limiting beliefs. In the previous episodes, we talked about how our beliefs influence our emotions, and there's a sort of hierarchy where the most accessible beliefs are called automatic thoughts. Those are the thoughts that are front of and center when we are in an upsetting situation. The underlying beliefs that are the rules that guide our choices and our behaviors, those are called the conditional assumptions. They're thoughts such as, if I want someone to like me, I must be nice to them. And those conditional assumptions are often couched in the form, if something, then something else, or else. And finally, forming the foundation of our identity, some of those beliefs are called core beliefs, or also core limiting beliefs, or self-defeating beliefs. I'll use these later terms when I specifically mean to point out the negative ones. And so those are the central beliefs that we maintain about ourselves, and not just about ourselves, but others in the world. And they come up involuntarily, but they are not also specific to one situation. They cover a broad range of situations. The negative core beliefs about oneself often fall into two major themes, either competency or desirability. We will also look at core beliefs about others and the world later, but I do want to emphasize the ones about ourselves because I think they are probably the main driver of our difficult emotions and uncontrolled behavior. They certainly influence our self-esteem, and so they can be split into those two domains. Someone may have doubt in both domains of competency or desirability, or maybe they can more strongly endorse negative views about themselves in only one domain. Some examples of core beliefs that reflect incompetence are, I'm incompetent, of course. I'm a failure. I'm weak. I'm not good enough. I'm inferior. I'm dumb. Some examples of core beliefs that reflect the undesirability would be, I'm undesirable. I'm unattractive, I'm unlovable, I'm unlikable, I'm bad, I'm worthless. For me, I know that one belief that I formed early in my life had to do with competency. And it was something along the lines of, I don't have what it takes. For example, when I was doing homework for school, much of it was easy for me, but I tended to fall short when it came to tasks that did not require much cleverness, but sheer memorization, just rote learning. And so I developed this belief that I wouldn't be able to achieve much that required a lot of work. Back then, I was getting A's in math and science because I kind of understood the concepts. But when it came to topics like history and geography, where you have to learn, my results were rather mediocre. And also, I didn't like to write essays because, again, you have to really suffer on the page. So, as a result, I began to see myself as a procrastinator. I developed this identity as lazy. And even when I came across contradicting evidence, I would just, rationalize it away. Like somebody would, congratulate me on getting my graduate education. And I would say things like, getting my PhD wasn't such a big deal, I was really interested in learning about all this psychology stuff. And gosh, you should have seen the snail pace at which I wrote my dissertation. Woo! So that's why when the time came to start this podcast, I was overcome with a deluge of thoughts and doubts as to whether I could really pull it off. And stay tuned, because I'll tell you at some point how I got over that obstacle. But let's go back to core beliefs about the self. So these core beliefs may always be present in every situation that you face, or may only rear their ugly head when you're facing a difficult or challenging situation. Commonly, people with chronic psychological problems have really pervasive core beliefs. They're always yelling in their ear and distorting almost all interpretation of every situation. So, and you might also want to pay attention to conditional assumptions, or what I also call rules. Rules are conditional statement from which we derive behavioral strategies and that are based on core beliefs. So here's an example. If one of your core beliefs is that you're inadequate, you may also hold the following conditional assumption. If someone compliments me, that means they're being disingenuous. Or if I stay in the shadows, then nobody will expect much of me. Similarly, if, for example, you believe that you are unworthy of love, that you don't deserve to be loved, you're unlovable, you might have these rules. Well, if I am perfect, then others will approve of me. Or if I say no to people, they won't like me. And those are behavioral strategies that we believe serve a protective role for us, but it only goes so far, and they're not very good strategies. So each one of us has had unique experiences, have shaped who we are. From these life experiences, we develop our core beliefs. And these experiences often, usually occur in childhood, and then our beliefs develop over time. And we can also acquire core beliefs later in adolescence or adulthood through the experience of significant life events. The core beliefs are really rigid and inflexible beliefs, and we really hold on to them for dear life because they really represent our identities. We maintain them by focusing only on information that supports the belief and ignores the evidence that contradicts it. This type of distortion or bias, we call that a mental filter. Core beliefs are the thoughts that a person has that determine how they interpret their experiences. Again, imagine that you have a core belief that says the world is a bad place. Well, you'll believe that people who are kind to you have an ulterior motive. Because somebody being kind to you without any reason just doesn't line up with the worldview that you hold. And so challenging these negative core beliefs can help you develop a healthier understanding of yourself and of the world around you. Think of core beliefs as a pair of sunglasses. You're wearing them outside and you start to forget that you're wearing them on your nose. But even though you forgot about it, they still color the way you see the world, including yourself. You'll see in the handout that you'll find in the show notes, there'll be some examples of core beliefs. And you'll see, depending on whether you're wearing rose-colored glasses or blue-colored glasses, you'll have different sets of experiences. In other words, it depends on whether your theme song is La Vie en Rose or Ain't Nothing But the Blues. The other thing you'll see in the handout is a way to uncover some of your core beliefs, especially sometimes when they're hard to find. And it uses a technique called a downward arrow. In this technique, you'll start with one of the automatic thoughts that maybe is obvious to you when you're feeling upset about something. So let's say, for instance, that your partner is mad at you for some reason and is giving you the cold shoulder. You may be feeling some fear, feeling rejected, and you notice that you're thinking to yourself, she seems really angry at me. Now, this may actually be the case. And when you learn to allow people to be responsible for their own states of mind, for their own emotions, you'll understand that it's none of your business whether or not she's angry. But in the present case, you're having some disturbing emotions about it. So let's dig a little bit deeper into it. So in order to use a downward arrow, you write down your negative thought at the top of the page, and you draw a vertical arrow coming down from it. And then you write one of the following questions. What does that mean? Why is that upsetting to you? What does that mean about you? If that's true, what's so bad about it? What's the worst part about this? So what's if this is true, what are you afraid would happen? How is that a problem for you? And I'm sure you can find other deepening questions like this, but this will definitely give you a good start. So each question will lead to another thought, which may also be an automatic thought, or it could be a conditional assumption or rule, or it could be a core belief. You'll know whether it's a rule or a core belief because those statements will cut across a range of situations in your life. So I'll go back to my example of a partner who seems angry at me. So if I ask the question, what does that mean? Why is that upsetting to me? So my answer could be, well, because it means she doesn't love me. Question, well, what's the worst part about this? Answer, I'm going to be alone. Question, and what does that mean about me? Answer, I'm unlovable. Bingo, now I have found the core belief that underlies this. So when you do this, you write it down on your worksheet and you find 3 pieces of contrary evidence to that belief. As you do this consistently, your negative core beliefs will begin to be undermined. And then you'll be better able to replace them with positive ones. So, let me know if this has been useful to you. Next time we'll be talking about the consequences of our beliefs. That is, our emotions, and how they're formed. But until then, thank you for listening to this episode of Peace at Last. For more information, go to peaceatlast.us, where you'll find the show notes for this episode and future episodes. If you have comments or questions, leave them on the website. You click on leave a comment, or you can email me directly at fabrice@life.net. I may be selecting your question as a topic for a future episode. If you just discovered this podcast, I invite you to subscribe on iTunes or on the platform of your choice. If you like it and you want to support this podcast, I invite you to share this episode with at least one person who might benefit from it. You can also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating, which will help other people to find it more easily. I'm Dr. Fabrice Nye, and I invite you to join me next time for another episode of Peace at Last.